My name is Karenza, 29 years old, and 6 years ago, I walked away from Atlanta with a single suitcase, a second-hand laptop, and a dream I wasn't sure I could make real. Today, I'm an AI specialist in San Francisco, crafting systems that safeguard billions in global finance from fraud. My code ran silently, protecting transactions for banks across continents, from New York to Singapore. But to my family back in Atlanta, I was a ghost. The forgotten daughter, the invisible sister, the one who never quite measured up. For years, I'd buried those memories, locked them away in a corner of my mind, focusing on the life I'd built from scratch. Until one cold November night in 2024, when my phone buzzed with a name I hadn't seen in years, my cousin Ethan. "Karenza," he said, his voice soft, almost cautious, "your family's been asking about you. They want you to come home for Thanksgiving." I stood frozen in my loft, the San Francisco skyline glittering through the floor-to-ceiling windows like a promise I'd fought tooth and nail to keep. Why now? After 6 years of silence, what could they possibly want? If you've ever felt like the black sheep, the one nobody saw, stay with me, this story is for you. Because when I walked back into that house, I wasn't just returning. I was reclaiming everything they never believed I could be. Growing up in Atlanta, I lived in the shadow of my older sister, Olivia. 3 years my senior, she was the family's golden child, with a $1 million smile and a knack for stealing every spotlight. By 16, Olivia was an Instagram influencer, posting selfies and designer clothes my parents bought her, racking up thousands of likes with every perfectly filtered photo. She was the one they bragged about at church potlucks, at family barbecues, at every holiday gathering. "Olivia's going places," my mom would say, her eyes sparkling with pride, her hands gesturing like she was presenting a trophy. "She's our star." Me? I was the quiet one, the weird one, always hunched over a library book or tinkering with a beat-up laptop I'd bought with babysitting money. I remember being 15, sitting at the kitchen table, picking at a plate of overcooked green beans while my mom told my aunts, "Olivia's our pride and joy. Karenza just needs to find something practical, like a secretary job or maybe retail." The words cut deeper than I let on, slicing through the fragile hope I'd clung to that maybe, just maybe, they'd see me one day. My dad, sipping his coffee, nodded along, his eyes fixed on the TV. Olivia smirked, scrolling through her phone, already planning her next post. That was my childhood, a constant reminder that love in our family was conditional, and I was always on the wrong side of the line. There were moments, though, when I thought I could belong. When I was 10, I built a model rocket for a school science fair. It was a scrappy thing, made of cardboard and a cheap motor I'd scavenged from a thrift store toy. I spent weeks in my room, gluing pieces together, checking calculations, dreaming of the moment it would soar. At the fair, it flew higher than anyone expected, earning me a blue ribbon. I came home, beaming, and showed it to my dad. He glanced at it, muttered, "That's nice, Karenza," and went back to watching Olivia's dance recital video on his phone. My mom barely looked up from her magazine. The ribbon sat on my dresser for years, gathering dust, a quiet symbol of my victories that went unnoticed. By middle school, I'd stopped trying to compete for their attention. I retreated into my own world, books, math, anything that made sense in a way my family didn't. Numbers were fair. Equations didn't play favorites. They just worked, as long as I did. My real escape began in high school, when I spotted a faded flyer taped to a hallway bulletin board, "AI Club, Room 114, Wednesdays after school." I almost walked past it, my sneakers squeaking on the linoleum, but something stopped me. Maybe it was the promise of something new, something mine. I showed up to that first meeting, clutching my cracked laptop, nervous in my thrift store sweater that smelled faintly of mothballs. The room was chaos, old PCs humming, cables tangled like vines, a whiteboard scribbled with equations and doodles. But it felt like home. The other kids, a mix of nerds, dreamers, and misfits, welcomed me without judgment. We coded simple chatbots, rebuilt junkyard computers, and stayed late arguing over Python versus Java, our voices echoing in the empty school. For the first time, I wasn't invisible. I was seen, not for how I looked or how charming I wasn't, but for what I could create. Ms. Harper, our club advisor, became my lifeline. A former software engineer with a no-nonsense vibe and a knack for spotting potential, she pushed us to think bigger. One day, after I'd debugged a tricky algorithm for a group project, a chatbot that could mimic a therapist's responses, she pulled me aside. "Carenza," she said, her eyes steady, "you've got a gift. It's not just code. It's the way you see problems, break them down, build something new. Don't let anyone dim that light, not your family, not the world." Her words were a spark, a quiet fire that kept me going through the long nights and lonely days. By 17 years old, I had a plan: get out of Atlanta, build a future where I defined my worth. I applied to MIT, pouring every ounce of myself into the application. I stayed up late studying, worked weekend shifts at a greasy diner to afford SAT prep books, rewrote essays until they sang with my voice. When the acceptance letter came, full scholarship, tuition, housing, stipend, I cried alone in my room, the weight of it all crashing over me. My parents didn't know I'd applied. They were too busy funding Olivia's UCLA tuition, her influencer career in full swing with brand deals and photo shoots. That summer, at a family barbecue, the final straw broke. The backyard was packed, relatives sprawled on lawn chairs, kids running through sprinklers, the air thick with charcoal smoke. My dad raised his glass to Olivia, our future star, making waves in LA. The crowd erupted in cheers, clapping like she'd won an Oscar. My uncle, half drunk on cheap beer, chuckled, "Carenza, we're hiring at the car wash if you need a gig. Starts at minimum wage." The whole family laughed, my mom, my aunts, even Olivia, who shot me a pitying smile as she adjusted her sunglasses. I didn't laugh. I sat there, gripping my plastic cup until it cracked, knowing I was leaving for MIT in a month. They had no idea I'd already won. I packed light and moved to Boston, trading Atlanta's humid summers for New England's crisp fall. MIT was everything I'd dreamed of and more: grueling, exhilarating, a world where ideas mattered more than appearances. I worked double shifts at a campus coffee shop, the smell of espresso clinging to my clothes, and pulled all-nighters debugging code in the library. My professors noticed me, my classmates respected me. For the first time, I felt like I belonged. I joined a research group, building AI models for predictive analytics, and spent weekends hacking side projects with friends who became family. One night, after a hackathon where our team built a prototype for fraud detection, my teammate Raj grabbed my shoulder. "Carenza, you're a freaking wizard. We wouldn't have one without you." I smiled, the warmth of his words settling into a place my family had never touched. I graduated top of my class, with job offers from tech giants before my diploma was framed. I chose a San Francisco startup specializing in AI for financial security, a perfect fit for my knack for solving complex problems. The work was intense but thrilling, like solving a puzzle that could save millions. By 2024, at 29, I was leading a team that developed an AI system to detect fraud in real time for global banks. The project was a game-changer, licensed for millions. My bonus? $200,000. I called a realtor the next day. Within weeks, I closed on a loft in Mission District, open plan, with skylights that flooded the space with light, hardwood floors that gleamed under my steps, and a balcony with a view of San Francisco's heartbeat. It was more than a home, it was a testament to everything I'd built without a single cheer from my family. I stood on that balcony, watching the city glow, and felt something new: pride. Not the kind my parents gave Olivia, but the kind you earn, the kind that comes from knowing you did it alone. 2 weeks before Thanksgiving, I hosted a housewarming. My chosen family, friends who'd seen me through failed algorithms, tearful breakdowns, and quiet triumphs, filled my loft with laughter. We sat on the floor, eating pizza on paper plates, toasting with cheap rose from a corner store. Maya, my best friend from MIT, raised her glass. "To Carenza," she said, her voice warm, the quiet genius who turned solitude into an empire. We clinked glasses, and I smiled, but a shadow lingered. In a week, I'd be driving back to Atlanta, back to the house where I'd never been enough. I wasn't sure why I'd said yes to Ethan's invitation. Maybe I wanted closure. Maybe I wanted them to see who I'd become. Either way, I spent days choosing gifts: a leather journal for my mom, embossed with her initials, a vintage watch for my dad, polished to a shine, artisanal candles for my aunts, scented with lavender and cedar. Thoughtful, personal, a gesture they didn't deserve but I gave anyway. Then I hit the road, 6 hours south to my past. The Atlanta neighborhood hit me like a time capsule: same cracked sidewalks, same sagging porches, same oak tree I used to climb to escape my parents' arguments. Their house looked tired, the paint peeling, the front yard choked with weeds, the porch light flickering like a dying memory. I stood on the steps, heart pounding, my suitcase heavy in my hand. I rang the doorbell, the sound sharp in the quiet evening. My mom opened the door, her eyes widening, her face a mix of surprise and something I couldn't read. "Carenza? You look different." Her hug was brief, stiff, like she was touching a stranger. I stepped inside, the air thick with cinnamon, old wood polish, and the faint must of a house that hadn't been aired out in years. The living room was packed, uncles, aunts, cousins, all turning to stare. "Well, look who's back," Aunt Linda muttered, her tone sharp, her eyes scanning me like I was an intruder. "Is she in jeans?" a cousin whispered, snickering. I glanced down: tailored blazer, silk blouse, boots that cost more than their monthly rent. Quiet wealth, but they didn't see it. They saw the old Carenza, the one who faded into the background like wallpaper. Olivia swept in from the kitchen, radiant in a designer dress that probably cost my mom's grocery budget for a month. Her fiancé, Ryan, trailed behind, a slick startup guy with a Rolex and a smirk that screamed overconfidence. "Everyone, meet Ryan," Olivia announced, her voice bright, practiced, like she was filming a video. "We're launching a clean beauty brand together." The room erupted in applause, aunts clapping, uncles nodding. Ryan grinned, soaking it up. Olivia's eyes landed on me, and her smile turned sharp. "Still tinkering with computers, Carenza? Or did you finally get a real job?" Laughter rippled through the room, light but cutting. My jaw tightened, but I kept my voice steady, almost bored. "Something like that," I said. If you've ever walked into a room where no one expects you to shine, hit subscribe, because this is where the story turns. Dinner was a masterclass in condescension. My mom seated me at the kids' table, next to a wobbly chair that creaked with every move. The tablecloth was stained, the plates mismatched, the air thick with the smell of overcooked turkey and my family's expectations. Aunt Linda cornered me by the punch bowl, her breath sour with cheap wine. "Olivia's brand is going to be huge," she said, her eyes gleaming. "You should help edit her YouTube videos. It's the least you can do for family." She chuckled, like it was a favor, like my time was hers to claim. Uncle Mark leaned in during dessert prep, his apron stained with gravy. "Still got openings at the car wash, kid. Pays minimum wage, but it's honest work." I forced a smile, my teeth gritted. "I'm good, thanks." Olivia held court at the head of the table, pitching her beauty brand like she was on Shark Tank. "We just need $250,000 to launch," she said, tossing her hair, her voice dripping with confidence. "It's a sure thing, clean ingredients, eco-friendly, influencer-backed. We're talking millions in revenue." My dad nodded, his eyes shining with pride, the same look he'd never given me. "Family helps family," he said, glancing at me like I was supposed to nod along. I sipped my water, my silence louder than their chatter. My cousin Jake, always the loudmouth, piped up. "Carenza, you still messing with those computers? Bet you're fixing printers or something." More laughter. I set my glass down, my fingers steady. "Not quite," I said, but they'd already moved on, Olivia's voice drowning out everything else. After dinner, the gift exchange began. Olivia unwrapped a designer handbag from my mom, squealing as she held it up, the leather catching the light. Ryan got a sleek smartwatch from my dad, his grin smug as he strapped it on. My cousins got cash envelopes, gift cards, boxes wrapped in glittering paper. I handed out my gifts, the journal, the watch, the candles, each one chosen with care, each one met with polite nods, nothing more. My mom took the journal, flipped through it, and set it aside without a word. My dad glanced at the watch, muttered, "Nice," and passed it to my mom to store. Aunt Linda sniffed her candle, shrugged, and handed it to her daughter. Then the room turned to me, and my mom gasped, her hand flying to her mouth, too loud, too rehearsed. "Oh, Carenza, we forgot your gift." The silence was suffocating. Olivia laughed, sharp and cruel, her eyes glinting. "Just like old times, huh? Don't cry about it." My cousins snickered, their voices blending into a familiar hum of dismissal. Aunt Linda patted my arm, her pity worse than the laughter. I felt 15 again, invisible, worthless, the blue ribbon on my dresser gathering dust. But I wasn't that girl anymore. Something shifted inside me, not anger, not sadness, but a calm, unshakable clarity. I reached for my phone, my fingers steady, my voice even. "No worries," I said. "I got myself something this year." I held up a photo of my Mission District loft, skylights flooding the space with light, hardwood floors gleaming, the San Francisco skyline framed by floor-to-ceiling windows. "Closed on it last week," I said, my tone casual, like I was commenting on the weather. "Paid cash, thanks to a $200,000 bonus from my AI project. We just licensed it to a major bank for millions." The room froze, like someone had hit pause on a movie. My dad blinked, his fork halfway to his mouth, gravy dripping onto the tablecloth. Olivia's smile vanished, her eyes narrowing to slits. My mom's voice pitched up, almost shrill. $200,000? You bought a house?" Ryan leaned forward, his Rolex catching the light, his entrepreneur senses tingling. "Wait, you're serious?" I shrugged, leaning back in my chair. "I'm an AI specialist. I build systems that stop financial fraud for Fortune 500 clients. My salary's been 6 figures since I graduated MIT." The silence was deafening, heavier than the turkey on the table. You could have heard a napkin drop. My cousin Jake's mouth hung open, his beer forgotten. Aunt Linda stammered, "That's impressive." Uncle Mark, the car wash joker, looked like he'd swallowed his tongue. Olivia whispered something to Ryan, who shot her a look, his smirk gone. The shift was instant, like a switch flipping. My mom stood, her smile all sugar and desperation. "Carenza, why didn't you tell us? We're so proud of you." Her voice was too bright, too late. My dad chimed in, his tone eager, almost frantic. "Olivia, your sister's working with big companies. Did you hear that?" Olivia's jaw clenched, her perfect facade cracking like cheap glass. Ryan leaned forward, his voice smooth but calculated. "So, you're like, loaded, huh? What's the company? Maybe we could collab." I didn't answer. I grabbed my coat, my suitcase already packed in my mind. "I've got a long drive back," I said, standing. My mom grabbed my arm, her nails digging in, her voice pleading. "Stay! We haven't even talked about your career." But I heard the whispers as I headed upstairs, urgent, calculating, a family already rewriting their script to include me now that I had something they wanted. My cousin Emma, the quiet one who'd always stayed out of the drama, caught my eye as I passed. She gave me a small nod, like she understood. It was the only real moment in that house. Downstairs, they were waiting, their smiles strained, predatory. My dad cleared his throat, his tone too casual, like he was asking about the weather. "Before you go, Carenza, let's talk about Olivia's brand. $250,000 isn't much for you, right? It's a family investment." Olivia nodded, her influencer charm on full blast, her eyes gleaming with entitlement. "You'd be in on the ground floor. It's a no-brainer." Ryan leaned in, his Rolex glinting under the chandelier. "We're talking unicorn potential here. Clean beauty's the future." I looked at them, my parents, who paid for Olivia's college but told me to figure it out when I was 18, my sister, who'd mocked me since we were kids, her laughter a soundtrack to my childhood, Ryan, who saw me as a walking ATM, his startup dreams built on my sweat. I folded my arms, my voice cold. No, the word landed like a bomb, shattering their carefully staged scene. Olivia's eyes widened, her mouth opening and closing like a fish. What do you mean, no? My mom's voice turned sharp, her sweetness gone. Cherish, this is family. I didn't flinch. Where was family when I was working double shifts to pay for textbooks? When you laughed at my science fair ribbon? When you didn't even call to see if I graduated? My dad started, his voice shaky. That was different. I cut him off, my words steady, cutting. It wasn't. You chose Olivia every time. I'm choosing me now. Olivia exploded, her influencer poise gone, her voice shrill. You're so selfish. After everything we've done for you. I grabbed my suitcase, my heart steady, my voice razor sharp. What you've done is remind me I'm better off without you. I walked to the door, their protests trailing behind me like a fading echo. My mom shouted, "You'll regret this." I didn't look back. I won't, I said, and I meant it. The door clicked shut behind me, the sound final, like a chapter closing. By the time I hit the highway, my phone was blowing up, texts, voicemails, guilt trips from every corner of the family. I pulled into a gas station, the neon lights buzzing, and blocked them all, one by one, except Ethan. He'd always been different, the only one who texted me on my birthday, who asked how I was doing without expecting anything in return. Back in San Francisco, I poured a glass of wine and stepped onto my balcony. The city sparkled below, alive and endless, a world I'd built for myself. Maya texted, heard about the drama. You okay? I typed back, never better. They gave me the best gift, freedom. The next morning, my phone was flooded again, not with calls from my parents, but messages from distant relatives, cousins I hadn't spoken to in years. Your mom says you're rich and won't help Olivia. How could you turn your back on family? We always knew you were cold. I blocked them, one by one, their words sliding off me like water off glass. Ethan called that afternoon, his voice heavy but warm. Jesus, Cherish, it's a mess. Olivia posted a YouTube video blasting you. It's got 10,000 views already. I laughed, dry and unbothered, pouring myself a coffee. Let her. I watched the video later, Olivia, teary-eyed in perfect makeup, her voice quivering for the camera. My sister, the selfish tech nerd, forgot her roots, she said, her words dripping with rehearsed pain. The comments were a war zone, some called her out, pointing out her entitlement, others piled on me, calling me heartless. I didn't care. Ethan sighed through the phone. Your mom's telling everyone you betrayed them. She's spinning it like they sacrificed everything for you. I snorted, stirring my coffee. Good. Let them tell their story. I'm living mine. 7 months later, summer wrapped San Francisco in golden light. I sat on my balcony, coffee in hand, watching the city wake up, joggers weaving through Mission District streets, street vendors setting up their carts, the hum of possibility in the air. My life had bloomed in ways I never dared dream. Work was a dream. I'd been promoted to project director for a new AI security integration, a role that put me in the top 1% of earners in my field. My team respected me, my ideas shaped systems that protected billions. I'd met Noah, a tech journalist with a warm smile and a story not unlike mine. He'd walked away from a toxic family in Chicago, carving out a life on his own terms. We connected over coffee one morning at a cafe near my office, talking code, dreams, and the weight of leaving people behind. We talked until the shop closed, the barista sweeping around us. He got it, the loneliness of being the odd one out, the freedom of choosing who you call family. We were planning a trip to Iceland, glaciers, hot springs, a world away from Atlanta's suffocating expectations. My chosen family, friends like Maya, who'd seen me at my lowest, threw a party to celebrate my promotion. We danced in my loft, fairy lights twinkling, music drowning out the past. Maya raised her glass, her eyes shining. To Carenza, who built this life from nothing. We laughed, clinked glasses, and for the first time, I felt whole, like the pieces of me had finally clicked into place. Ethan kept me updated, not because I asked, but because he cared. Olivia's beauty brand never took off. She and Ryan were still living with my parents, pitching one failed idea after another, their dreams crumbling under the weight of their own hype. My mom had turned my betrayal into her favorite sob story, telling relatives I'd abandoned them after all their sacrifices. I didn't care. Their version of me was a ghost, a story they told to feel better about themselves. My cousin Emma, the quiet one from Thanksgiving, sent me a message a few months later. I saw what happened, she wrote. I'm proud of you. Don't let them pull you back. I saved her number, a small bridge to a family I'd mostly left behind. A month ago, Olivia got my new number, probably from a cousin I forgot to block. Hey, Carenza, she said, her voice syrupy, too sweet, like she was auditioning for a role. We should catch up. Ryan's got a new pitch, and we could use your expertise. You're so good at all that tech stuff. I didn't let her finish. No, she exploded, her voice shrill through the phone. You owe us. You'd be nothing without this family. I hung up, blocked her, and sat back in my loft, Noah beside me, the city humming outside. I felt nothing but peace, a quiet certainty that I'd made the right choice. Everything they said I'd never have, love, stability, a home, I'd built on my own terms. My old bedroom in Atlanta? They'd turned it into a storage room for Olivia's unsold products, boxes of overpriced serums gathering dust. It didn't sting. That house was never my home. This loft, this life, was. Last week, Ethan texted, "Your mom saw your Iceland trip post on Instagram. Says you're rubbing your success in their faces." I laughed, typing back, let her think what she wants. My boss called me into his office that same day, his face serious but warm. Carenza, he said, you're redefining what's possible in this field. This promotion, this role, you earned it. We celebrated with champagne on my balcony, Noah grinning as Maya joked, your mom probably sensed your bank account growing. I raised my glass, to chosen family. They echoed it, their voices warm, real, filling the space my blood family never could. My phone buzzed, another unknown number, probably Aunt Linda with her tired family is forever spiel. I silenced it, the city lights brighter than any guilt trip. If you've ever felt invisible, like your worth was buried under someone else's spotlight, I want to hear from you. Drop a comment, what did you walk away from? What life did you build? Your stories remind me I'm not alone, and maybe you need that reminder too. Don't wait for permission to choose yourself. Build the empire that reflects your worth, not their expectations. If this story hit home, hit subscribe, like, and let's keep this conversation going. You're not invisible. Not anymore.